Greetings in the name of the Lord. And the subject of this week is Christian martyrdom. When we talk about Christian martyrdom, we must go back to the book of Acts in chapter 7. We will be able to read the story of uh, the last hours of Stephen, who preached and was pretty much stoned to death in the city of Jerusalem. So Stephen was the first martyr for the cause of the gospel, and from that moment forward, thousands of believers in Jesus Christ have died around the world in these centuries. Uh, there are many reasons for this sad reality, particularly at the first century. Uh, I will say that a few of them was the social economic conflict between the Jewish community, not just in Jerusalem, but even throughout the Greco-Roman Empire. Christianity was seen as a threat to the Roman Empire, especially after year 50 after Christ, when it was placed in the list of illicit sects. Christians refused to worship and give honor to other deities, including the Roman emperor. So that created another reason for persecution. And because of that, people begin to create stories. They begin to accuse Christians of being atheists because, of course, that they were not worshiping the Roman or the Greek gods. They were accused also of being cannibals and practitioners of incest, among other things. Of course, that they took words, particularly about the Eucharist, and particularly when in our tradition we said that the fruit of the vine is compared with the blood of Christ. So they were saying that we were drinking blood, so that means that we were cannibals, and of course, the relationship between brothers and sisters in the Lord that was taken to another level, and we were accused of incest, among many other things. So, during this period of time, nearly all the first disciples died as martyrs. James, the son of Zebedee, was beheaded at the year 44. And according to Eusebius, the great church historian, Philip and his daughters were crucified at the city of Hierapolis in Asia Minor. Matthew was killed in Acts around the year 60, and James, the brother of Jesus, was beaten to death as well. Matthias, which we know very little about him because we read about him when he was the apostle who replaced, or the person who replaced Judas Iscariot. Well, according to the church history, Matthias was beheaded. And pretty much with the exception of Apostle John, all of the first disciples were martyrs for the cause of the gospel. Also important figures of the first century, I would say, of the first generation, died as well as martyrs. For instance, the Apostle Paul, he was beheaded. Mark, body was torn into pieces. Luke, Barnabas, and Timothy also became martyrs as well for the cause of the gospel. So, thousands gave their lives for the sake of Christ during the Roman governments of Nero, Decius, Valerian, and Aurelian, among others. Well, the list of martyrs does not conclude with Constantine declared Christianity as the official religion of the Roman Empire. The reactions to martyrdom was quite diverse during that period of time. Some people left the faith, becoming apostates. Others denied the faith under torture, but then they returned in spite of the danger. Others endured the persecution and survived to tell the story. And as I mentioned before, others died as martyrs. When we take a look to the fathers of the church, I would say that a good portion of them suffer martyrdom for the cause of the gospel as well. Among them, I will say that Bishop Polycarp of Smyrna is one of my dearest ones. Uh, Before he was executed, was asked to deny Christ, and his response was that for 86 years I have served Christ, nor has he ever done me any harm. How then could I blaspheme my King who saved me? We have other interesting individuals that perhaps have been famous for being martyrs for the cause of the gospel. Justin Martyr is one of them. And perhaps the other couple that are very famous for die for the sake of Christ was a noble woman by the name of Perpetua and a slave by the name of Felicity in North Africa. But there were many, many, many others who suffer martyrdom for Christ. Christian martyrdom has never ceased to exist since the first century. Today, according to the BBC News, there are an estimate of over 100,000 believers in Jesus who die as martyrs for the cause of the gospel every year. As a matter of fact, between the years 2000 and 2010, more than 1 million believers die as Christian martyrs. And we're talking about now, the 21st century. And if we take into consideration what has happened to the believers in the Middle East, in North Africa, in North Korea, in China, and other locations around the world, we're certain that the amount of martyrs today are in the rise. So, what are your thoughts about Christian martyrdom? How would you live in a society in which Christianity is forbidden and persecuted? So, those are the thoughts for this week. Please watch the video presented by Dr. Patrick Ivy. May the Lord continue blessing your lives.